You know, inside your body, right now, there's this silent network of chemical messengers that's basically running the show. We're talking about the hormonal control system. It's this incredible command and control structure that dictates, well, pretty much everything from our growth to our moods. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how it all works. So let's just jump right in with a question. What if I told you there's a hidden command center deep inside your brain that's controlling some of the most fundamental processes in your body? I mean, it's pulling the strings on things like reproduction, development, the big stuff. So what is this thing, and how in the world does it work?
All right, the answer has kind of a long, sciencey name, but stick with me. It's the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, or much easier, the HPG axis. Just think of it as a team of three. You've got two parts in your brain, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, and then your gonads, so your ovaries or testes. These three work together, and they are the absolute master control system for all of our reproductive hormones.
So how does this team communicate? Well, it's this really elegant three-step chain reaction. It all starts at the top with the hypothalamus. It sends out a signal called GnRH. You can think of that as the starting pistol firing. That signal travels a tiny distance to the pituitary and tells it, okay, your turn. The pituitary then releases two more hormones, FSH and LH. These guys are the long-distance messengers. They jump into the bloodstream and travel all the way down to the gonads. Once they get there, they deliver the final orders. Hey, start producing sex hormones and get those eggs or sperm ready. It's this beautiful, efficient chain of command.
But wait a second. What stops this whole system from just going haywire and producing way too many hormones? Well, that's where something called negative feedback comes in. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like the thermostat in your house. When the levels of hormones like estrogen or testosterone get high enough, they send a signal all the way back up to the brain that basically says, hey, it's warm enough in here, turn off the heat. And the brain listens. The hypothalamus and pituitary slow down production, and that's how everything stays in this perfect, delicate balance. Okay, so now that we've got the basics of the HPG axis, let's look at probably the most dynamic, incredible example of it in action, the female menstrual cycle. This is not a static, boring system at all. It's this beautiful monthly rhythm of hormones rising and falling, and the HPG axis is the conductor of this entire orchestra. So this whole cycle is basically a biological story that unfolds over about 28 days. And you can really think of it as a play with two main acts. The first half is called the follicular phase. This is all about preparation, getting everything ready for the main event, ovulation. Then you have the second half, the luteal phase, and this act is all about what happens after the main event, preparing the body just in case of a pregnancy. And the key to these two acts is a major shift in the main hormonal character. In that first half, the follicular phase, estrogen is the absolute star of the show. Its biggest job is building up the uterine lining. But then, right after ovulation, the spotlight swings over to progesterone. Progesterone takes center stage during the luteal phase, and its job is to make that uterine lining stable and cozy, a really welcoming place for a potential pregnancy. Okay, so let's talk about that pivotal moment, ovulation. What actually triggers it? It's pretty amazing. Right around the middle of the cycle, something incredible happens. The rising estrogen levels actually flip a switch in the brain. The system goes from that turn it down negative feedback to a let's go positive feedback. This causes the pituitary to release this massive surge of luteinizing hormone, LH for short. And that LH surge, that's the ultimate go signal. It's what tells the ovary to release a mature egg. It's the whole point of the first half of the cycle.
All right, we've talked a lot about the female cycle. So what about the male hormonal blueprint? Well, here's the fascinating part. It uses the exact same HPG axis. You still have the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the gonads, but the end result is totally different. Instead of that monthly rhythm, the male system is designed for something much more constant, a steady, day-in, day-out production. And those same two messengers from the pituitary, FSH and LH, are still the key players. They just have different jobs. It's like a division of labor. FSH focuses on the Sertoli cells, which are basically the sperm-making factories. Its job is to support sperm production. Meanwhile, LH heads over to the Leydig cells, and its job is to tell them to produce testosterone. Two hormones, two very clear and distinct roles. Okay, so now that we understand this incredibly intricate system of signals and feedback loops, the next logical question is, what happens if we want to, well, mess with it? What if we want to intervene on purpose? This idea of hacking the hormone system is the foundation for a massive field of medicine, everything from birth control to fertility treatments.
So, if the whole system runs on these precise signals and feedback loops, how can medicine actually influence it to achieve a goal? Well, the answer is surprisingly straightforward. We can introduce external hormones or drugs that either mimic the body's natural signals or block them. By doing that, we can basically take control and manipulate the HPG axis to get the outcome we're looking for. A perfect example of this is combined birth control. It's so clever because it works with a three-pronged approach. First, it gives the body a steady dose of hormones. This taps into that negative feedback loop we talked about earlier and tells the brain, hey, we're all good here, which prevents that big LH surge. And if there's no surge, there's no ovulation. Simple as that. Second, the progestin in the pill thickens cervical mucus, literally creating a physical barrier that's tough for sperm to get through. And third, it keeps the uterine lining thin, making it a pretty inhospitable place for an egg to implant. It's a really comprehensive strategy. We see the same kind of thinking in hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, for menopause. But here, the treatment has to be tailored to the individual. For a woman who doesn't have a uterus, say after a hysterectomy, she can just take estrogen. But, and this is super important, if she does have a uterus, she has to take a combination of estrogen and progestin. Why? Because estrogen all by itself can overstimulate the uterine lining, and that actually increases the risk of cancer. The progestin is there specifically to protect the uterus. It's a critical safety measure. Now, what if we could get even more precise? Well, we can, with a class of drugs called SERMs. The S stands for selective, and that's the whole magic here. These drugs can act like estrogen in one part of the body and then block it somewhere else. Let's look at two of them, tamoxifen and raloxifene. In breast tissue, they both act as blockers, which is great for fighting certain breast cancers. In bone, they both act like estrogen, helping keep bones strong. So far, so good. But here is the massive difference. In the uterus, tamoxifen actually stimulates the lining, which is a risk factor for cancer. Raloxifene, however, blocks it. That one little difference in selectivity has huge implications for safety. We can also flip this whole thing on its head to treat infertility. A drug called clomiphene basically does the exact opposite of birth control. What it does is it goes up to the brain and blocks the estrogen receptors. So the brain gets tricked. It looks around and thinks, whoa, there's no estrogen here. In a panic, it basically screams down at the pituitary gland to pump out way more FSH and LH to get things going, and very often that big push is enough to kickstart the ovaries and trigger ovulation. And of course, this kind of targeted intervention isn't just for the female system. A fantastic example in men is the drug finasteride. It works by blocking the conversion of testosterone into a much more powerful version of itself. But what's really fascinating is how the dose changes everything. At a 5 milligram daily dose, it's used to treat an enlarged prostate. But if you drop that dose all the way down to just 1 milligram, it's used to treat male pattern hair loss. It's the same exact drug, just a different dose for a totally different outcome. A perfect example of how much precision matters in this world. So when you step back and look at it, our understanding of the HPG axis has given us this incredible power, right? We can regulate cycles, we can help create families, we can treat disease, all by learning to speak the body's own hormonal language. And that leaves us with a really big final thought. As our ability to fine-tune these fundamental biological signals gets more and more precise, what's next? What new possibilities and what new challenging ethical questions are waiting for us just over the horizon?